Dosunmu on the drive!
Go for it. He will.
It feels like every year, a new breakout player makes us look back at NBA drafts past and wonder how they fell so far. It often leaves many fans upset that their teams passed on high-level talent. But why do these players slip through the cracks in the first place? Let's take a look at a couple of prospects who might be flying under the radar this year, but could be the stars of tomorrow. Good three-point shooting, high steal and block rates, switchable size. On paper, Vince Williams Jr. profiles as a cut-and-dry 3-and-D wing. You can set up a pretty simple statistical query looking for three-point shooting and defensive event creation, and you'll find Vince among names like Robert Covington, Danny Green, and Matisse Thybulle. Unfortunately, it's challenging for Vince to stand out due to the abundance of 3-and-D prospects across the country, and a lot of these prospects play in a Power 6 conference, meaning more scouts attending their games while they play with and against the nation's top prospects. But watching Vince's tape changes everything. A hesitation move also disguises a pass. Locking eyes with a wing shooter to get the low man to bite before rifling a pass around a blitz to an open cutter. A DHO now fake, turning the corner before finding a no-look behind the back bounce pass. A fake to the wing, moving the weak side defender, then to a cutter relocating the strong side defender. Pass over the double team through his newly created window, and with the defenders distracted, a cut to the open space. Disguised as a simple 3-and-D wing, is one of the craftiest advantage creators in the country. While he's not a 99th percentile athlete, and he doesn't have a deep bag of counters, Vince Williams uses craft and constant misdirection to generate offensive advantages at an impressive rate. Coming into the season, VCU didn't really have a primary offensive engine, and as a result, Vince has been tasked with much more ball handling and playmaking responsibility than he normally would. Vince has embraced his new role, and while it took him some time to get adjusted, he's begun to thrive in it. Outside of his elite use of misdirection, his offensive game relies on two standout traits. First, his three-point shot. Between his comfort hitting his shot off movement, his quick yet high release, as well as being seemingly unbothered by shooting through contact or altering his release to fire around contesting defenders, Vince is blossoming into a prolific shot maker, and he's currently converting threes at a blistering 47.8% mark in conference play. And secondly, his reactive decision making. While most younger players know exactly what they're going to do the moment they get the ball, Vince is actively reacting to and punishing defensive mistakes. While traditional offensive engines rely on overwhelming athleticism or skill to create advantages, Vince's game is closer to baiting defenders into making mistakes than swiftly and clinically punishing them. While he may not be able to win with athleticism alone, he's certainly no slouch athletically. He only needs to buy himself an extra half step to blow by his defenders, and given an open lane, he'll rise up for a dunk. While his on-ball offensive prowess has catapulted my intrigue towards Vince as a prospect, he's just as impactful in a more complementary role, capable of punishing defenders on closeouts and keeping the ball moving with quick connective passing. On the defensive end, Vince is best off-ball, where his feel for the game and decision-making shine, often reading the opposing offense and relocating to intercept passes. He's become one of my favorite weak-side defenders to watch this season, capable of hedging multiple assignments, as well as making timely rotations as a low man to meet drivers at the rim. With quick and constantly active hands, he generates a lot of turnovers and is currently posting some of the best steal and block numbers in the country. On ball, I have doubts over his ability to prevent players with elite burst from attacking his back hip, and recently VCU have opted to go with super small lineups featuring Vince as the 4 or even sometimes the 5, which has showcased his inexperience as a post defender, with him occasionally being abused by taller and stronger players. That being said, when projecting Vince's defense in an NBA context, teams are going to want him on the court as his off-ball defense has potential to be excellent, and when defending 2s and 3s, he does a good enough job of keeping himself in front of them to not be a defensive negative, with his size and athletic tools giving him a lot of room to grow as an on-ball defender. On the offensive end, Vince's three-point shooting and connective passing abilities project him as a positive player from day one. However, with the level of craft and growth he's shown over the course of this year, I think Vince has the potential to be a sort of glass-stealing offensive prospect. Labels like 3-and-D insinuate a certain limited offensive upside, but with the level of shot making and craft, I could really see Vince flourishing into a high-volume NBA scorer given the right team context. Really quickly, only 1% of my viewers are subscribed. If you enjoy the content, please consider subscribing. It helps me out a lot. As a prospect, Isaiah Crawford offers an impressive combo of functional NBA skill and enticing long-term upside. At an extremely switchable 6'6", 220 pounds with a 7-foot wingspan, his combo of strength, quickness, and flexibility make him an extremely enjoyable athlete to watch. As both a good connective passer and 40% three-point shooter over the past 2 seasons, Isaiah is a seamless fit into any modern offense. And he has a compelling case for being the most underrated wing defender in all of college basketball. Most outcomes could secure him a spot on an NBA roster, but the way he leverages his unique athletic profile with his feel for the game and promising bag of skills at just 20 years old could see him becoming an NBA starter. Isaiah loves to get downhill and pounces on any opportunity his opponents give him to do so. As a primarily strength-based creator, he prefers initiating his drives with east-west movement, which allows him to get his shoulder into his defender's chest, muscling them out of the way before turning the corner, which is often followed by Isaiah's long strides outpacing his defender to the rim. His ability to get to the rim is made even more impactful by his highly efficient finishing numbers. His body control in the air is truly elite, and he's able to keep himself balanced through contact, which leaves him seemingly unbothered by it. That ability to play through contact shows up when he gets the ball on the block, where he'll often quickly face up and contort around his defender to get his shot off, as well as on putback attempts, which he gets a lot of due to his good feel for interior positioning and strength to outbully other players. As a reliable shooting threat on the catch, he draws hard closeouts, which he can blow by with ease on his way to the rim. While he's shown flashes of being able to create some separation on the dribble, he isn't a reliable pull-up shooting threat at this point. Isaiah's passing involves a lot of effective but not so flashy, quick connective decision making. However, he does showcase his fair share of passing flashes, and he seems to be a big fan of skip passes, which he's capable of finding pretty consistently. The defensive end is where Isaiah is most dominant. When he was on the court last season, Louisiana Tech's defense ranked 6th in the nation compared to only 56th when he wasn't. Between his feel for defensive rotations and application of athletic tools, it's challenging to pick a favorite defensive skill of Zay's. As a perimeter defender, he's incredibly good at matching his opponent's footwork and shifting his body in front of them to effectively wall off drives. Louisiana Tech switch most ball screens, so we don't get to see him navigate screens often, but he's still shown some impressive possessions of screen navigation regardless. Isaiah has extremely active hands, and with his long 7-foot wingspan, he's able to get them on everything. He'll rip the handle of a few drivers every game, and one of the most entertaining showcases of his athletic prowess comes when he's able to get 2 hands on the ball, where he'll either overpower players and rip the ball away from them, or in some cases tie up drivers. The awareness and feel for the game required to be a truly elite off-ball defender isn't something that can really be learned. You kind of either have it or you don't, and Isaiah certainly has it. He has a very high level of court mapping, and you'll often see him defend multiple players on any given possession. This, combined with his impressive ground coverage, allows Isaiah to quickly erase offensive advantages, in addition to reading offensive plays before they materialize, allowing him to preemptively jump passing lanes. Isaiah is likely being overlooked for a combination of 2 reasons. First is the obvious playing in a non-Power 6 school. The second is that he's looked great when he's healthy, but unfortunately that's rarely been the case. After forcing his way into an all-upperclassmen starting lineup as a true freshman, Zay suffered a season-ending knee injury in January of 2020. And after his first healthy off-season this summer, he had a strong start to the 2022 season, before unfortunately suffering yet another season-ending injury in just the 3rd game of the regular season. Injury proneness is a valid concern to have with Isaiah as a prospect, but I think it's important to recognize that outside of those 2 major injuries, he's had a clean bill of health. In the small time we've been able to enjoy a fully healthy Isaiah Crawford, he's impressed on both ends, and if a team is able to look past those setbacks, they'll likely be rewarded. Coming into the 2022 season, Wake Forest were expected to quietly occupy a spot at the bottom of the ACC. Fast forward to March of this year, and they sit 5th with a 22-8 record, all but a lock to make the NCAA tournament. It's been a team effort that's gotten them this far, but that effort has undeniably been led by the conference's leading scorer and assister, Alondes Williams. After spending his previous 2 seasons coming off the bench at the University of Oklahoma, Alondes opted to transfer and spend his final year of eligibility at Wake Forest. While he was named a starter in the preseason, no one expected him to break out into one of the most dominant guards in the country. Despite the gaudy numbers he puts up on a game-to-game basis, he's still considered as a late 2nd round pick by most, with ESPN ranking him as the 52nd best prospect. Alondes has to fight 2 major factors as a prospect. First, his age, as he'll turn 23 prior to the draft this summer. And second, the fact that he wasn't able to hold down a consistent spot in the starting lineup during his 2 years at Oklahoma. However, with the collection of impressive skills that Alondes has showcased, he has multiple pathways to becoming an NBA starter and should receive consideration as high as the late teens come draft day this summer. Over the past few seasons, most NBA offenses have been built around the concept of inside-out play, having a player drive to the rim, collapsing the opposing defense, then swinging the ball around until an open shot is found. Alondes ranks second in the nation in unassisted rim attempts this season, with 158 such attempts in just 30 games. He's quite dynamic in the various ways he uses ball screens, often using hesitation moves and hang dribbles to bait his defender into thinking he intends to use the screen before blasting off in the opposite direction. Against hedges, he'll simply use the screens to switch onto opposing bigs, quickly breaking down the hopeless mismatched defenders. And against drop defense, he'll probe into the mid-range, where he's a lethal pull-up shooter, currently sitting at 48% on the season. While there are a lot of guards who can use screens to generate rim pressure, that isn't always an option. But what makes Alondes special is that he's extremely capable of getting past his defender without needing a screen. His combination of ball security, long arms, creative gathers, and deep bag of moves allow him to get a lot of east-west separation from his defenders, which in turn allows Alondes to get his shoulder into their chest, where they'll often bounce off of him, or he'll set up a second-level counter, of which the spin move is his personal favorite. Once he gets to the basket, he's a crafty, ambidextrous finisher, currently sitting in the 91st percentile in half-court rim efficiency this season. And when given the right window, Alondes flashes his athleticism, skying up off 1 foot for ferocious dunks. However, Alondes' best athletic trait is his strength, and when defending smaller guards, he can easily take them to the post, where he's capable of showcasing high-level footwork and technique, as well as the ability to finish through contact. Alondes pairs his relentless rim pressure with developing, yet often extraordinary passing vision. He blends elite court mapping and spatial awareness with an extreme level of audacity, frequently generating advantages for his team with well-placed high-velocity skip passes, which he's capable of firing with either hand and even off a live dribble. If he sees the back of a defender's head, he will instantly zip a pass right past them. Adding on to this, he loves to work in misdirection whenever he can, frequently looking off defenders before making the perfect read. And this combo of audacity, misdirection, and execution add a level of unpredictability to Alondes' game. While he certainly has a taste for the flashier passes, he's capable of making simple pick and roll reads, as well as connective passes to keep his team's advantages alive. However, his ambition can get the best of him at times and leads to pretty high turnover numbers. There are two different skills that Alondes hasn't really shown much of that would catapult his game to the next level. The first of which is three-point shooting. He's currently at 31% from deep on the season, but historically pull-up two-point shooting ability serves as a solid indicator of shooting potential, and Alondes excels in that area. The other would be the perfect harmony of his two elite offensive tools, which rather confusingly, he doesn't seem to merge together consistently yet. As an elite driver and skilled passer, you would expect a lot of drive and kicks. However, Alondes rarely kicks the ball out once he's deep in the paint, often missing open teammates in favor of contested shots at the rim. As an off-ball defender, his active hands and spatial awareness lead to a lot of solid rotations and steals, but at the same time, he's easily confused by complex offensive actions that include multiple screeners. Additionally, he seems to struggle to consistently communicate with his teammates, leading to some preventable botched coverages. On ball, a few things are important to note. First, it seems pretty apparent that at least towards the beginning of the season, Wake were actively trying to hide Alondes defensively, routinely bringing doubles to prevent him from guarding ball handlers. While he certainly got cooked a fair few times, he's actually done a very solid job recently. You can often find players who are great on-ball defenders but poor screen navigators. Rarely do you see the inverse. Yet, despite his at times lackluster on-ball defense, Alondes has done extremely well navigating screens this year, contorting around contact while staying married to the ball handler, which gives me a lot of hope for Alondes' defensive outlook long-term. Between his high feel for the game, athletic tools, and tangible in-season development, there is hope for not only serviceable, but downright good defensive play as Alondes develops. We touched on it earlier, but there are a few viable pathways to a starting job in the NBA for Alondes Williams. The first would be as an offensive playmaker. Alondes' ability to operate as a lead playmaker likely relies on if he can connect his driving prowess with his passing touch to capitalize on the chaos his drives create with drive and kick passes. The other is as a hybrid combo guard wing. If he could become even just a slight three-point shooting threat, he would easily capitalize on advantages created for him by attacking closeouts and getting to the rim. In addition, Alondes would also likely need to continue to show growth on the defensive end, becoming a better communicator and more familiar with how to defend complex offensive actions. It's easy to get caught up in the allure of what younger prospects could become in the future, but it's important to not miss on what's already staring you in the face.